I could use just a little help. Can't start a fire. Can't start a fire without a spark. This gun's for hire. Even if we're just dancing in the dark.
You know, you kind of think, well, during these 5 years that these kids are with us, what are the things that you could maybe alter, nudge, shift in some way that are most likely to change the lives of people? That seems like a pretty good reason to teach, right?
Sounds like a ridiculous amount of money, but when you factor in
the ball dress
and the ticket
and the hairdresser,
3 sessions at the sunbed,
which didn't really work, so I ended up getting a spray tan.
My dress was strapless, so I needed a new bra.
Eyelash extensions,
shoes.
A bunch of us went in for a limousine.
Then you get charged for a photographer. That's
turn up in a rush. It's form time. There's 15 other things happening in a school day. Someone's looking for their shoes. They suddenly just go. The music starts. Here we are, and it just lands straight away. And I often will say to you, or you will say to me, God, these guys are good. You know, it's just like they're pros. They can just slip into this and make this happen out of nowhere in the middle of this shabby, compromised, mucky, dusty, mouldy school day. There's this little gem.
alcohol, of course.
Uber to the after party,
$1,000 all up.
at least.
Easy.
I think we've been exceptionally lucky to work with the 4 people that we've had in this show. All 4 of them are incredibly generous. You know, they've brought a lovely generosity to the process. And they all have quite different strengths as actors. So Libby has this remarkable ability to sort of
Do you want to go to the ball with
physically just be really, really brave in a scene and bring dynamic and energy into scenes, and that's pretty amazing.
Sure.
Ella has an authenticity that's really rare, and she's able to connect with other actors on stage. Just in the way she uses her eyes is remarkable. Zach has got this sort of charm and comedy about him naturally, and that was really helpful to have sort of that playful element to his character. Josh has brought real vulnerability to his character, and especially for the person he plays within the story, showing that vulnerability was really important. It takes a lot of bravery to play that character in front of a bunch of teenagers as well, and he did that without a question. You know, he was really remarkable.
I thought it's a really great opportunity to get a really difficult message and topic across in a way that people can really engage with. It also felt really important and necessary.
I think my first impression very early on was like, this is going to be hard. And it's going to be a challenging thing to do because it's so personal. And it's something that, like every woman ever, has always been sort of like afraid of, and it's always been like a possibility that could happen to anybody.
It's probably one of the highlights, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the people the people are amazing. Yeah, we have cool conversations and all that, and it's good to be able to, we have a good balance of goofing, but then also actually getting some proper work done. And yeah, I think that's really valuable.
Working with such a great cast as well. It was so professional, and you could have that fun as well in rehearsals.
There's 4 characters, 2 males and 2 females, and basically they end up in pairs. You know, some different things happen and it's surrounding their school ball, and then they end up at an after party and into like identical scenes, and then one person takes it too far and the other one stops when they're told.
We spoke with the school counsellors and asked them what's the thing that they see most often when it comes to stuff like this. And they told us that the most common scenario is a Monday morning and a young woman comes to see them after a party on the weekend or an after party, and a really, really common occurrence was after a school ball. And this young woman has found herself alone in a room with a young man, and he's made it too hard for her to get out. So that's the setup we used in the play, and what we want to do is find some way to change the behaviour of those young men.
There's one other thing you need to know, and that is during this play, near the end, there was a moment where we asked something of you, the audience. This play is beginning a discussion about consent and sexual consent, to be explicit, and there was a moment in the play where these get put on their side, and the end's important, just watch carefully. 2 red blankets will go over them, and that is a signal that from that point on in the play, after you've seen those on their sides and red blankets, that's then we want something from you. And what we want from you is very, very simple. After that point, when you personally think the young men, and all the young men, I'm going to name it from the outset, have gone further than you think is okay in terms of their behaviour in this room with a young woman, when you think, nah, that's too far for me, you stand up, right? Some people might stand quite early, others will stand a bit later. When there's a bunch of you standing... Nobody really is at their best when they're feeling defensive. Certainly not at their best in terms of taking on new messages and changing the worldview. Nobody really changes their story of the world when they're feeling attacked, belittled, demeaned.
Comedy really relaxes the audience. They begin to feel comfortable and they just slip into the world of the play. And I think that's really important, because then they're engaged and it really draws them in and makes them want to keep watching and find out more about the characters and who's going to go to the ball with who and all of that stuff. And it means that because it starts as a comedy, you can get away with having that really, really tough ending because they're in the play. The audience, they've engaged with the characters and they want the best for those characters.
Did I show you the photos of my ball dress?
Yeah.
Can I show you again?
Nah.
It's much greener in real life. It's actually greener in the photo too, but the shadow here in the background makes it look blue. It's an optical illusion.
Looks green to me.
Yeah, it's actually greener. Have you asked him yet?
I don't know, I want to go with him.
You have to go with someone.
You're allowed to go along.
How shameful is
I
that?
don't think it's at all...
He's listening.
What?
Guy by the microwave? He's listening.
You mean Ethan?
I'm not good with names.
He was in our film class in year 9.
He was smaller then. You know what this means, right?
Nothing.
Are you listening to us?
What?
Are you listening to us? Are you listening to what we're saying?
Be hard not to, you're sort of shouting at me.
Earlier. Were you listening to us earlier?
What was that? Sorry, hard to hear over the microwave. I was lying. Of course, that's what we do, right? We listen into people's conversations and we lie about it.
I'd noticed too, but I didn't want to make a big thing of it because it wasn't a thing. Abby has a way of making everything a thing.
I don't want to sound harsh, but the truth is Harriet can be too passive. She expects the world to come to her and then she sort of resents it when it doesn't. My date for the ball was Bailey. I sort of made it impossible for him not to ask me.
I ran straight out in front of the car, realised it was a police car, waved, hurtled over the front fence, cut around through the admin block, smiled at the officer, they like it when you smile, gunned across the tennis court, and by then I was completely soaked.
Luckily, the microwave beeped, so I turned back to my noodles and hoped that would be the end of it. Well, kind of hoped. Truth is, there was a reason I'd been listening.
They would have been perfect for each other. And I could have set it up in 30 seconds, but then my phone beeped.
You know, it's like you might not always hear about it, seeing as it's something that's not often like spoken about, or that's kind of, you know, taboo to talk about to some people. But it's, you know, it is like the people around you that have gone through things like that, and it's your friends and your sisters and your mothers and things like that. And it is like still very, very important today to, you know, tell these stories.
Yeah, actually, it has led to many times of me actually being able to have conversations with people about that sort of stuff both from people my age to, you know, the older adults in my life and that sort of stuff, which, yeah, it's a good segue instead of just being like, hey, do you want to talk about this quite, not touchy, but very anxious sort of topic that isn't really talked about that much.
So, you're the guy who always turns up to write moments, eh?
Sorry?
Oh, you know, gym, the common room with noodles, and the gym with the chubby child and the water bottles.
It's all about food and drink with me.
I was actually going to ask you.
Sorry?
No, it doesn't matter. You often go to that gym?
Just a one-time thing to get a mate to stop hassling me.
People shouldn't do that.
Do what?
Body shame.
What's it about my body?
I didn't think it was.
But you just...
Yeah, I need to get better at thinking before I, you know.
Okay.
So when we got this project, it was really like, what are the stories we want to change? What would we like young people to hold as true about the world that maybe they don't currently hold true, that might nudge this behaviour? We kind of came up with 3. The first is just, can you recognise manipulation, sexually motivated manipulation, when you see it? That's really, really important. If you've suddenly got the story of that's what it looks like, then you can recognise it, and that may help you deal with it. So that was the first thing. It's kind of what the play is. The second thing is, can you learn the story, which is, this is not a minor thing. So I think it's possible that, I actually assume it almost must be true, that a bunch of people don't think this is a big deal. If we have a culture where habitually people try to manipulate and pressure other people into having sex with them, I can only be generous and assume they don't think it's hurting those people much. Because I think if they saw it as an act of cruelty and an act of dismissal and an act of destruction, I presume they wouldn't be as blasé about doing it. So immediately, and that's a pretty optimistic take on human nature, but let's go with hope, you know. So the second story is, can we see and believe and understand that if you get this wrong, the implications for some people are life-changing and crippling? So that's the second thing we want people to know. I want them to recognise it and then understand how much it hurts people if you get it wrong. And then, of course, let's finish with hope. The third story is, you guys could change this very, very easily. You could transform the world. That's a really, really hopeful story. What generation doesn't want to believe that they're going to change the world for the better and fix the things that their parents bequeathed them?
And I think they do recognise like a lot of sort of like the manipulative behaviour that takes place. But then I also think that a lot of people don't recognise it. And I think that's probably the only part that's slightly frustrating. Like when we ask people, you know, like give an example of like what he did that wasn't right. And I feel like a lot of people can get kind of hesitant because they don't actually, they're like, oh, you know, he explicitly touched her without asking, but then they don't recognise all the other stuff that happens that makes the woman feel so like trapped and unable to escape. And I think that can be quite frustrating because I think that's one of the biggest problems with it, is not feeling like you can get out of a situation like that.
So I did. Just went nuts. And then at some point I realised I was all alone on the dance floor.
The discomfort that arises, the doubt, huge amounts of doubt that you would feel as an audience member watching this and having to make a judgment call in the moment, having to make a judgment call about what's okay, what's not, where the line was crossed while you're wondering, am I making this up? Is this, what about the people around me? They have to do it publicly, there's a social pressure there. All of those things gives us such a huge advantage in the wrap-up, because we get to draw that parallel between what you experience as an audience member and what it would be like for a young woman alone in a room with a man to have to stand up and walk out or say something.
Something to do with testosterone? Oh my god, look at this.
Experiences are powerful, so giving the audience a physical experience of just an element, tiny element of that discomfort that a young woman might feel is a really powerful thing, and hopefully a lasting thing.
God, you're beautiful. Sorry, did that make you uncomfortable? But you are.
I think I'd like to go.
Did I say something wrong?
I want to go. I didn't want it to happen, but it did. And there's a word for that. You carry the memory of it, you know, and guilt. And yes, I know that makes no sense, but you carry it anyway. And shame. I found myself thinking, what did I do to make that happen? Was I sending out signals without knowing it? Was I too friendly? Is that a thing? Was it my fault for drinking? I wasn't drunk, but I'd been drinking. I couldn't face telling anyone because I knew they'd ask me, why didn't you just get out? It's not like he held me there, right? It's not like he forced me to stay. And I didn't leave, I just froze. I don't know how to describe it. Shut down, like it's your brain's way of numbing the pain. Not that numb. I was still frightened, but maybe not as frightened as if I'd done something, said something, made it real. How do you know he won't get angry or violent? And what are other people going to say when they find out? How are they going to treat you? And what about the way he'll say it happened? It's all out of your control and you're scared and confused, so you shut down. You know, I always sort of believed, sort of hoped that the first time I had sex would be something I wanted to do. That's not too much to ask, right? That shouldn't be too much to ask. I didn't want to be there. I never wanted that to happen.
Even if I'm just dancing